The lake always looked different in the morning. Some days it shimmered like glass under the rising sun, smooth and innocent, but that morning it looked heavy. The fog clung to the surface like a secret refusing to lift. I stood at my kitchen window, holding a cup of coffee I'd barely touched. The smell of pine and damp earth drifted through the screen. Cedar Hollow was usually quiet this early, a small town of barely 3,000 souls, but something about the silence today felt wrong. My name's Grace Miller, 37 years old, divorced. I teach art at the middle school. I live alone in a small cottage just up the hill from Hollow Lake, the kind of place real estate brochures call peaceful and private. It used to feel that way until this morning, around 6:15, I saw it a flicker of blue and red through the mist. Then came the sirens, slicing through the quiet like razors, sheriff's cars, 2 of them. Heading down the dirt road that curved toward the lake, I set the mug down, heart thudding against my ribs. Something had happened. By the time I reached the lakeshore, half the town seemed to have gathered there. The fog was thick, curling around legs and drifting through the yellow tape that flapped in the weak wind. Sheriff Earl McKinney, a man with the body of a bear and the patience of a saint, was talking to a deputy near the dock. I knew him well enough. Cedar Hollow was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone, and gossip traveled faster than the mail. "Morning, Sheriff," I said, stepping closer. He turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Grace, you shouldn't be down here. I heard the sirens. What happened?" He hesitated, then sighed. "A body." The word felt like ice down my spine. "Who? Can't say yet." He replied, "We just pulled her out of the water about 10 minutes ago. Looks like she's been here since last night." Her. The crowd buzzed with whispers. Names floated through the air. Young, female, maybe someone from the diner. Could be a tourist, maybe that girl who rents the cabin near the woods. Sheriff McKinney walked off to speak with the coroner. I stood there, watching the deputies move in slow, careful motions, their boots squelching in the mud. Then I saw a shape, a stretcher being lifted from the dock. The body was covered, but a few strands of wet blonde hair escaped the sheet. My throat went dry. I knew that hair. "Oh my God," I whispered. It was Rachel Cole. Rachel was one of my students' mothers, 32, full of life, always laughing at parents. Teacher nights, always asking about art classes for her daughter. She lived just a few houses down from me. I remembered seeing her last evening, around sunset. She was at the lake, walking her dog, waving at me as I watered my garden. There was nothing strange then, no sign that something terrible was about to happen. Now she was gone. That night I couldn't sleep. The fog had returned, thicker than ever, pressing against the windows like a ghost trying to get in. I sat in the living room, staring at the reflection of my face in the dark glass, sipping cold tea. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom, my ex-husband. Saw the news. "You okay?" I typed back, "Yeah, it's Rachel. She lived near me." Then I deleted it, then retyped, then deleted again. We hadn't spoken in months. Not since he'd moved to Chicago with his new fiancée. He still cared in that distant, guilty way people do when they've left but haven't fully let go. Another buzz. "Grace, be careful. Small towns eat rumors like candy. Don't get involved." I almost laughed. In Cedar Hollow, it was impossible not to get involved. The next morning, I went to the general store. The air smelled like coffee and sawdust. Mrs. Porter, the owner, was already behind the counter, whispering with a customer. When I walked in, the whispers stopped. "Morning, Grace." She said too brightly, "Morning." I answered, "Any news?" She leaned closer. "They say Rachel was last seen near the lake, around 7 last night. Some people heard shouting. "Yeah, sheriff's looking into it. They say someone saw a man's truck parked near the water." My stomach twisted. What kind of truck? Old Ford, red, maybe 90s model. You know who drives one of those, don't you? I did. Jack Coleman, Rachel's husband. That afternoon, Cedar Hollow turned into a rumor factory. Half the town swore Jack did it. The other half said he was out of town on a delivery route. He worked for a local lumber company. But something about the whole thing gnawed at me. Rachel had once told me she was scared. It was at the school fair months ago. She'd laughed it off, but I remembered her exact words. Sometimes I feel like someone's watching the house at night. At the time, I thought she meant raccoons or teenagers. Now, I wasn't so sure. Around dusk, I walked down to the lake again. The police tape was gone. The air was thick with the smell of wet pine. I sat on the dock, my reflection rippling beside me. That's when I noticed something. A small silver earring glinting between the plank's half, buried in mud. I picked it up carefully. It wasn't Rachel's style. Too expensive, too polished. Someone else had been there that night, and for the first time since the sirens, I felt a chill crawl through me, not from grief, but from a terrible, unmistakable sense of knowing. Sleep didn't come easy after that. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps, every whisper of wind like someone calling my name through the fog. By morning, I decided I couldn't just stand by. Cedar Hollow was a small town too small for secrets to stay buried, and too stubborn to trust the police alone. I'd seen the way people were already pointing fingers at Jack Coleman, Rachel's husband. I didn't like him much, no one really did, but something in my gut told me the truth wasn't that simple. I kept thinking about that silver earring. It sat on my kitchen table, wrapped in a paper napkin, glinting in the weak morning light like a question waiting for an answer. Who did it belong to? I started by walking down to Rachel's house. The police had finished their sweep early that morning, leaving the front door sealed with yellow tape and a faint smell of damp carpet wafting from the porch. The place looked hollow like the air itself had been drained out. Next door, Mrs. Langford, Rachel's elderly neighbor, was sitting on her porch, wrapped in a shawl despite the warmth. She'd lived in Cedar Hollow her whole life and saw everything that moved within 2 blocks. "Grace Miller," she called as I passed. "You shouldn't be snooping round there, dear." "I'm not snooping," I said gently, "just checking in. You heard anything last night?" She nodded, her wrinkled hands tightening around her mug. "Heard yelling around sunset, thought it was them again. Rachel and Jack. MHM, she was crying. I could hear her through the screen door. Then a truck started up, drove off fast. What time was that? About 7, maybe a bit later. And you didn't see who left?" She hesitated. "Didn't see him. But there was another voice, not Jack's, deeper, slow talker. I heard him say something like, 'You shouldn't have told her.' Then the truck left. A chill slid down my spine. "You sure?" She nodded. I might be old, but I know what I hear. Back home, I turned the earring over in my hand again. You shouldn't have told her. Told who? Told what? Rachel had confided something to someone, maybe even me, but what was it? I thought back to our last conversation. She'd been happy that day, walking by the lake with her dog, waving at me from the path. Nothing strange, nothing scared, but there was something else. A week before, at the art room in school, she'd stopped by to drop off her daughter's drawings. "You ever feel like people aren't who they say they are?" She'd asked out of nowhere. At the time, I'd laughed, thinking she meant social media or small town drama. Now it felt like a confession I'd ignored. That evening, I went to the Mill House, Cedar Hollow's only bar, to find out more. Small towns have their own kind of newsroom, and this was it. As soon as I walked in, the smell of beer and fried onions hit me. The chatter dimmed slightly. People glanced my way. It wasn't hostility, just curiosity, the kind that turns neighbors into spectators. I slid onto a stool beside Cal Peters, who ran the hardware store and liked to think of himself as the unofficial historian of the town. "Rough week?" he muttered, sipping his whiskey. "Yeah," I said. "Heard the sheriff question Jack." Cal nodded. "Brought him in this morning. Folks say he didn't look surprised. That's never a good sign." "Did he say where he was last night?" "Out making deliveries in Ashwood, alone. No witnesses. Convenient, huh?" I hesitated. "You believe he did it?" Cal shrugged. "Who else? Rachel was seeing someone, that's what I heard. Maybe Jack found out." The words hit me like a slap. "Seeing someone? That's what she told Jenny at the diner. Said she met him a few months back. Wouldn't say who. Just said he was different." Different? I felt a twist in my chest, because I suddenly remembered something, a white SUV that had been parked across from Rachel's driveway several times last month. I'd thought it belonged to a visiting contractor, but now, maybe not. When I got home, the air was cold and sharp. The fog had thinned, revealing the moon's reflection trembling across the lake. I stood there for a long time, the earring clenched in my fist. That's when headlights flashed through the trees. A car coming down the gravel road slowly. It stopped in front of my house. My pulse spiked. The door opened and a figure stepped out tall, wearing a dark jacket. The porch light caught his face. "Sheriff McKinney," I let out a shaky breath. "Evening, Grace." He said, "Mind if I come in?" "Sure," I said, trying to sound casual. "Everything okay?" He stepped inside, eyes scanning the room like he expected to find something out of place. "You were at Rachel's place this morning." I froze. "How did you?" "Mrs. Langford called. Said you were asking questions." "I was just checking on her." His gaze softened, but only slightly. "Grace, I know you cared about her, but I don't want you getting pulled into this mess. We've got people working the case." I hesitated, then I made a decision that would change everything. "I found something," I said quietly, and handed him the earring. He turned it over in his palm, frowning. "Where'd you get this?" "By the dock, near where they found her body." He whistled softly. "Doesn't look like Rachel's." I thought so too. He slipped it into a plastic evidence bag. "We'll check it. Might belong to the boyfriend if the rumors are true." I blinked. "So you've heard that too. Can't ignore town talk. Sometimes it's half lies, sometimes it's gold." He turned toward the door, then paused. "Grace, stay out of this. Promise me." I nodded, but the moment he left, I knew I wouldn't. Because deep down, I could feel it like a cold hand on the back of my neck. Whoever killed Rachel wasn't done yet. And that night, as I locked my door and turned off the lights, I saw something move outside, a faint shadow near the lake, standing perfectly still, watching. I blinked. The figure was gone. But on the window pane, where the condensation had fogged the glass, there was a single streak, like someone had dragged a finger across it from the outside. A message written in silence. And I suddenly knew. The killer knew I'd found the earring the next morning came pale and brittle, like the light itself was afraid to touch Cedar Hollow. I hadn't slept. Every sound of the night had kept me awake, the creak of the floorboards, the whisper of branches brushing my window, the ghost of Rachel's voice in my head. When dawn finally broke, I brewed coffee and sat at the table, staring at the damp outline of the earring's shape still visible on the wood where it had rested the day before. The sheriff had it now, but its presence lingered like the start of a puzzle I wasn't done solving. Something about the earring nagged at me. The design had been distinct, a small silver hoop with a tear-shaped sapphire hanging from it. It wasn't the kind of jewelry most women in Cedar Hollow wore. It was expensive, imported maybe. I'd seen something like it before, but where, at noon, I drove into town, hoping to shake the fog in my mind. People were quieter. Now tragedy had a way of muting small towns after the gossip burned out. Closed signs still hung in windows near the diner, and outside the sheriff's office a news van idled. Cedar Hollow was finally on the map for all the wrong reasons. When I parked outside the mill house, I spotted someone I hadn't expected to see, Deputy Kyle Rivers. Young, polite, and nervous, the kind of man who always looked like he was apologizing for existing. He'd been assisting Sheriff McKinney for years. "Kyle," I called. "Any word on Rachel's case?" He shifted on his feet, glancing around. "Shouldn't be talking about it, MS Miller. Come on," I coaxed. "I found that earring, remember?" He hesitated, then, lowering his voice, said, "Sheriff ran it through the state database. Belongs to someone local. Someone who's been in trouble before." My pulse jumped. "Who?" He swallowed. "Jenny Price." I blinked. "The waitress from the diner." He nodded. "Apparently she's got a record from years back, theft, petty stuff. Sheriff says she and Rachel had words a few days ago. Something about a man. A man." I thanked him, heart pounding, and headed straight for the diner. Jenny Price was wiping down tables when I walked in. Her dark hair was tied up, her lipstick faded. She looked up, startled. "Grace, we're closed. I just want to talk." Her jaw tightened. "About what?" "Rachel Cole." She went still, then set the rag down slowly. "I already told the sheriff everything I know. I'm not the sheriff." For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Then she sighed and sat in the booth, motioning for me to join her. "I didn't kill her," she said flatly, "if that's what you're thinking. I'm not, but your earring was found at the scene." Her eyes widened. "That's impossible. I lost that earring weeks ago. Where? Here. Somewhere around the diner, I thought. Sheriff McKinney was in that day, said he'd help me look. Never found it. My mind froze. Sheriff McKinney. The earring, he had been in the diner near Jenny weeks ago, and he'd had access to it. A cold realization rippled through me. What were you and Rachel arguing about? I asked carefully. Jenny's face softened with something like guilt. She told me she was seeing someone, said he was kind, older, and treated her like she mattered. I told her to be careful. Then she said his name. I leaned forward. Who? Jenny hesitated. Her voice broke when she finally spoke. Earl McKinney. The name hung between us like a gunshot. Sheriff McKinney, the man investigating her death. My heart slammed against my ribs. You're sure? Jenny nodded. Rachel said he was going to leave his wife, that they had to keep it quiet for now. I told her she was playing with fire. Guess I was right. I sat there frozen, my mind replaying every moment his calmness, his insistence that I stay out of it, the way he'd taken the earring without a word of where it came from. He was cleaning up his own mess. By the time I reached my car, the sky had gone gray, bruised with approaching rain. I drove toward the lake, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When I reached my house, I saw it immediately, a dark SUV parked at the edge of the trees. The same kind of car I'd seen near Rachel's place last month. The engine was running, and then the driver's door opened. Sheriff McKinney stepped out. Grace, he called, voice low, calm, measured the same tone you'd use with a cornered animal. We need to talk. I didn't move. You shouldn't have gone to Jenny. How long were you seeing Rachel? I asked, my voice shaking. He sighed. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She wanted more than I could give. When she threatened to tell my wife, He stopped, jaw flexing. I tried to reason with her. You killed her. His eyes flashed. It was an accident. She fell, hit her head on the dock. I panicked. I had to make it look like something else. The air thickened around us. I could hear the rain beginning to fall soft, then heavier, drumming against the lake. Why plant Jenny's earring? I asked. She was asking questions, same as you. He took a slow step forward. Give me the earring, Grace. You already have it, I whispered. That stopped him cold. His expression changed confusion, then realization. He reached for his belt, and that's when I saw the glint of metal. He was drawing his gun. I turned and ran. My boots splashed through puddles, the rain blurring my vision as I stumbled toward the dock. Behind me, I heard his voice low, furious, desperate. Grace, stop, you don't understand. But I did. I understood perfectly. Rachel had threatened to expose him. He'd killed her to protect his reputation. And now he would kill me for the same reason. A shot rang out, the sound echoing over the water. The board beside my foot splintered. I dove behind a boat, heart hammering. My phone was in my pocket, soaked, useless. Then, in the distance, I heard sirens. For a moment, I thought I was imagining them. Then another shot. He was closer now. Grace, we can fix this. He shouted, voice cracking. No one has to know. I took a deep breath and yelled back. They already do. Because behind him, through the curtain of rain, red and blue lights flashed. Deputy Kyle's cruiser screeched to a stop on the road above. Sheriff, Kyle's voice thundered, drop your weapon. McKinney froze, the gun trembling in his hand. He turned toward the lights, and for the first time I saw something break in his eyes. Then he dropped the gun into the mud, and just like that, the lake swallowed the sound. They took him away in cuffs as dawn bled gray into the water. The rain had stopped, leaving everything shining and wet, like the world had been washed clean. Kyle gave me a blanket, his hands still shaking. "We found your message on the dispatcher line," he said. "You called before you ran out." I nodded faintly, barely remembering doing it. McKinney confessed. He added quietly, he said Rachel was going to expose their affair. Said it was a mistake that got out of control. I looked out at the lake, calm now, still. "Everything does in Cedar Hollow," I said softly. Weeks passed. The town began to breathe again, slowly. Rachel's daughter moved in with her grandparents. The diner reopened. People smiled again, though the smiles carried the memory of something dark. Sometimes I walk down to the lake at sunset. The fog still rolls across the surface like it always did, but now it feels different, lighter somehow. Justice doesn't erase the past, but it does quiet the whispers. And when the water's still enough, I swear I can almost hear Rachel's voice, not crying this time, but calm, free. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.